So good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Mark Roberts. I'm the Director for Commercial Services at the Metropolitan Police. I'd like to thank Coupa and eWorld for allowing me to be here with you today to talk a little about what we're doing within the Met to support the recovery of London following COVID and the other challenges it faces. I should also say Happy St David's Day. I won't try saying it in Welsh because I'll probably get the pronunciation terribly wrong. I haven't done it for so long. But before we start, a quick poll, please. How many people came here today, obviously not via tube, but how many people came via car, taxi, bus? Hands. Okay, how many people flew? Who's the flash? Anybody flying? No, okay. Anybody come on a bike? No? Anybody come by boat? You laugh now. Hold on a minute. Okay. Bit of a history lesson. I don't know if any of you knew, but this is where the FA was incorporated in 1863. So look there. It's also an historic past in the evolution of the Masonic community within the UK. It has also held luminaries such as Vivienne Westwood. So there was a fashion police at the door. If your shoes didn't match your trousers, they weren't letting you in. And Britain's Got Talent. So I'm afraid we haven't got a dachshund on a unicycle playing the bagpipes this afternoon, but I'll try my best to match on that. Now, a number of you laughed when I said who came by boat. How will you get here in 10 years? Okay. This, I would hardly recommend this. It's not as depressing as it may seem. But there's a site, it's called Climate Central. This shows the impact of 1.5 and 3 degree increases in temperature. As you can see, this is the impact that it would have in London in that time. And you might think, oh, I'm in Covent Garden, it's safe. This patch is red and this patch is blue there. Okay, and that's based on the fact we're obviously around a river, and we are subject, as some of you might have been witness to last summer, by flash floods and the damage that causes. Okay? We as a force have to step in to support issues arising from that. But this is a looming challenge for the great city of London. And we're not alone. Indonesia is moving its capital city. Jakarta is sinking. Okay, moving to a new capital city called Nusantara. And those other cities on there are also sinking. Those are the 11 sinking cities of the world. Today I read something in The Economist that not just due to flooding, but there are 3 billion people subject to the challenges of climate control in the short to near-term future. As a city, we have our challenges. You know, I've seen a number of statistics around how certain communities, certain parts of London have really suffered through COVID. And as you can see here, these statistics were put together by my colleagues in the GLA, the responsible procurement team there. As you can see here, these are some major, major challenges for us as a city to deal with. You know, if you want to understand what poverty means 60% below the median average wage. The median average wage for the UK is £30,800. So that puts it a salary or a household income around £12,500 of what families are having to deal with. As you can see there, we're facing challenges around London living wage. Unemployment has obviously been an issue as we've gone through COVID. Some parts of London have really, really struggled with the challenges that has brought. There's a theme I'm going to carry on today. Modern slavery, we'll come back to it. I urge everyone to be aware of the heinous challenges that provides. And the Met, obviously, we deal with a number of fronts. We have a very committed team of officers that are dealing with that, and I'll touch more on that as we move on. And you know, air quality. It was interesting. I was in to London on a regular basis from July 2020. And it was just interesting to see the quality of the air, that you could feel it differently, not due to the number of people in and around. This faces us. So if you take this, you take the climate challenges, and then you put COVID on top. That's a tough, tough combination of issues that not just London, but any city in any nation around the world has to deal with. But I don't want to depress you too much. Okay, there are opportunities out there. There are windows, there are havens for us to look forward to. And out of this, there's, the World Economic Forum proposing there's a $4.5 trillion opportunity for businesses to embrace. My previous employers, I used to work for Anheuser-Busch, they're looking at how you recycle and reuse spent grains. They've launched a separate division to look at taking barley and put that into the food chain. Forbes highlighted again the opportunity that sustainability provides us, and the Global Finance Initiative that was launched in conjunction with COP26 has highlighted and made available $140 trillion of funds under the stewardship of Mark Carney, former Governor of the Bank of England, to invest in schemes around the world. So where do we fit into this? Well, commercial services at the Met, we spend approximately £850 million a year on a very, very diverse set of goods and services. Now, we will buy, as I'm sure a number of you will buy, commodity items. We buy the laptops. We buy professional services. I don't think there's too many people in the room today who has a category pillar called counter-terrorism. Okay, we have to equip our officers to deal with the threats that poses. And we have the horses, the dogs, we have the helicopters, we have a wide range of things that are there to keep our officers safe and ultimately keep the citizens of London safe. We also earn, it's probably going to be over £300 million this year in terms of income from our policing services that we provide predominantly. And the main, I suppose, beneficiaries of that are Transport for London, Houses of Parliament, Heathrow and London City. But we also provide policing services to various parts of London, the large retail outlets, O2, Wembley, as you might suspect. And as I took over in December 2019 and began a transformation, let's use the term, the function had been drifting for a period of time, it needed to be refreshed, and we began that journey, and we began transforming it during lockdown, which came with its own challenges, and we worked our way through that, and we now have the operating model in place. And one of our aspirations was always to figure out how we could divert as much of that £850 million as possible for the benefit of London. So a year ago, we launched what we called our Commercial Conscience Initiative. And that was to take the elements that were involved in around sustainable procurement, and I'll touch on those in a moment, as well as think about how we could contribute to driving and enabling social value across the communities of London. So for us, 8.8 million citizens, 8.8 million customers a day, all with their own unique challenges that we have to respond to under very trying, very challenging circumstances, I'm sure you can all imagine. We've been around as an organisation since 1829. We're probably one of the oldest law enforcement agencies of the world. We have a huge, huge wealth and breadth of communities that we have to engage with. And anything as an organisation we can do to enable people to make the right life choices ultimately means lower crime, lower violence, a better quality of living for Londoners. So we are in active collaboration with our partners in the Greater London Authority. A lot of the initiatives that have been underway, really driven by the GLA Responsible Procurement Group, has allowed us to come together. So you look at ourselves, look at Transport for London, London Fire Brigade, London Ambulance Service, London Legacy Corporation, to figure out how we can drive commonality in all of these areas for the benefits of us. And we've signed up to be part of the working group of the responsible policy, and are working our way through all of these various initiatives. I'm sure a number of all of these, your own particular versions of these. And, it's it's making a difference. We're starting to see, I think, internally, people understanding, okay, commercial services can help policing in getting out and reaching communities through the work of, say, on modern slavery. Last night, I was talking to our race advisory group. In a couple of weeks' time, I'm talking to our LGBT advisory group about what we can do to open up and make ourselves more engaged with our communities and help, say, our officers in driving engagement and diverting value into those communities across London. It wouldn't surprise you that the Met has one of the largest fleets in London, and we have a range of various cars. Obviously, you'll see it's called the Battenberg design down the side of it. You'll see a number of vehicles around London. I'll build this out. Now, unlike a number of you, the Mayor has aspirations for being net zero by 2030. The rest of the country has 2050. So we've got to figure out how we drive that transition to an electric fleet. And all of our vehicles have very, very unique characteristics. We obviously have our response vehicles. You'll see, I won't say the brands, but you'll see some of the larger 4x4s with officers driving around. Some other vehicles we have are used by our counter-terrorism firearms officers for raids, let's say that. All have their different requirements. We also have a bike fleet, and we're trying to figure out how we transition that now to being net zero in 7 years. And the challenge we face isn't alone. It's a simple fact, there's not enough charging infrastructure in London. We have to work with our partners in City Hall and across the GLA in trying to put that infrastructure in place. It sounds ludicrous, but we can't have a police car involved in a chase suddenly breaking down because it's run out of battery. You can't put 50p in the meter for it to kind of kick back in. We've got to provide that continuity, and as we begin this transition, all of you, for your respective organisations, might have fleets. You're all looking how you can do this. How do we make sure our demand is understood, how we can guarantee the supply into our organisation, and equip our officers to drive in a different way? That's this thing here. We have a large number of people trained as drivers and to drive in, obviously, high-speed situations, but we've got to give them the ability to understand better. It's not a gear. It's driving in different patterns. It drives different behaviours. So, large amount of change for us in the vehicle space. We're engaged and we're moving forward on that now. And we're also transitioning our estate. Now, the Met used to have over 800 buildings in London. We're down now with our plan to be around 163. And as we do that, we've got to make them as net zero and as carbon friendly as possible. But as we begin to convert a police station, you've got to put the police officer somewhere else for a time. You can't have windows out on a day like this. You've got to make it safe, you've got to make it secure for the officers inside. So there's a huge logistics challenge for us as we move people around and bring our estate up to the standards in terms of all of the things listed on there. It's a very, very active program. But if you look at it in terms of where we are from a sustainability perspective, the main points for us are fleet and property, because those are probably the biggest areas for us. I think the statistic I heard yesterday, we drive every day, the Met drives around the world, I think about 6 times in terms of the miles that the officers drive. So what are we trying to do on top of this? What we're trying to do is maximise the impact of every pound spent. And that comes in a variety of different ways. We are looking at how we can obviously drive the social value opportunities. We want to see all of our suppliers paying a London living wage. We sign up to that, we believe in that, we want to see others do that. We're actively now, as I'll talk about in a couple of minutes, engaging on a far greater basis with our SME and VCSE communities. We're seeking to identify as many apprenticeships as possible. The biggest, I suppose, supporter of that, contributor of that at this moment in time has been our property area, construction, building, but we're looking to achieve that now through other areas of spend. So we're monitoring modern slavery and ensuring prompt payment. When we were faced, it's strange to believe that under 2 years ago we still really hadn't started to embrace COVID. We made the decision as early as possible to go to immediate payment for our suppliers. Because that was a decision that we felt was the right thing to do, and we're still doing that. We will bring it changes in from April the 1st, but we've done that to support organisations through what have been unprecedented challenging times. So we're in eWorld. Let's talk about technology, shall we? So we, as part of our transformation, implemented Coupa in January last year. We were the first public sector organisation to implement Coupa outside of the US, globally. And people say wrongly in lots of times about how slow public sector can be to embrace and make changes. We did it in 112 days. We had our first kick-off meeting on September the 28th, and we went live with sourcing and contract management on January the 18th. And we're delighted by that. And from that, we've moved on. We've implemented supplier information and contract management subsequently to that. So in terms of supplier information, as we've touched on, we're interested in looking about how are suppliers paying the London Living Wage? Are they a SME or a VCSE? What are they from their certifications in terms of carbon and other areas? We understand the pay gap, obviously we ensure prompt payment. And one of the things we're really, really excited about, and we're working with Coupa strongly on this, is our relationship with MSD UK. So MSD UK is an organisation based in Leicester, and its aim is to support the identification and the growth of minority-owned businesses in the United Kingdom. So what that allows us to do, through their data set and married with ours, we can start to identify the minority-owned businesses within London and educate them on how they could bid to win business with the MPS. I think we're the only one of 2 public sector organisations in the UK to form that relationship, and we're really, really excited by that. It just gives us a huge amount of visibility and insight into organisations we would never have been aware of. And not only do we get insights on the data, but we also can have workshops to educate organisations on how they should prepare to do business with us and give them training and get them used to dealing with an organisation such as ourselves, but other organisations as well. So once we know who an organisation is, what does it stand for, we need to understand the risk. And last year we completed, and we've just recently published it, our very first modern slavery statement. So let me just talk with this for a minute or so. As I said, the Met faces modern slavery on 2 fronts. We deal with it in how we better understand our supply networks, and we deal with it through our dedicated officers who have to deal with some horrendous, horrendous crimes. And when I speak to the detective superintendent about that, I said, what is the one thing that I should take away and pass on? And it's very simple. Be curious. If you do not believe that modern slavery is an issue today in the UK, then you're very naive, to put it frankly. There are very well-known organisations that have fallen victim to this because the levels of diligence they've applied to what levels of spend, they will look at their contracts and just fallen into this. This is happening in plain sight. And when Andy came along to our supplier conference prior to Christmas and revealed some of the stories regarding people trafficking and people being forced into sex labour, we had people in tears in that audience. And what has happened from that is we have now been invited, well, not me, but the detective superintendent, to go to other suppliers to make them aware of the challenges that we all face in combating this heinous, heinous crime that is a blight on societies. And with the awful, awful events that are now taking place in Eastern Europe, we all have to be mindful of people falling into ways of life, or falling into, or being preyed upon and being forced into this. So it's something we all should be mindful of. So we've done the modern slavery statement. We're also launching this year a supplier code of conduct. Again, we're reinforcing a number of themes in what we expect from our suppliers. And that goes in and includes details around treatment towards and behaviours towards women, girls, members of staff. We're looking at how you can combat abuse towards members of staff. And that will go live in the coming months. That's in front of our investment board in 2 weeks. We're engaging, obviously, actively on a variety of fronts with our suppliers. We are, as of last year, what is called an anchor institution. The anchor institutions was formed to help London recover. So it's us, and there's a wide range of organisations. As you can see there, those are what we're trying to achieve as part of that. So every decision now that is going out, that we are seeking to find a supplier, we're looking to incorporate those elements into our business decisions. We've leveraged the 10% requirement that was imposed on organisations last year as part of the policy notes. So we've been going out for over a year now and asking suppliers, what are you doing around sustainability and social value? And I suppose another thing we want to reveal today is our relationship with GiveWith. So GiveWith is a social value impact organisation. What that means is that we're able to divert value from deals that we have done with our suppliers to support organisations that we've identified with our community engagement teams. And we have identified 2 organisations. So the first of those is an organisation called Groundwork. So think of this as ground force for the community. Okay, this is providing sustainable solutions for communities. It's getting people into helping with their health problems, and based on what we've diverted so far, that's the impact that we've been able to deliver to parts of London. The 2 organisations listed are the organisations that have diverted value from their contracts to support us. The next one is what's called Red Thread. So Red Thread helps people out of violence who have been victims of violence. So this will include putting people in hospitals to give them the support, having been through a violent incident. Again, nearly £19,000 there. So if you kind of do the math, we're about £70,000. We've been able to identify £750,000 through this programme so far. And we're now working with our friends at Coupa and with GiveWith to bring these 2 things together, to integrate them, so the ability to do this, make it part of our process even simpler and even slicker for our suppliers. We also have contract management, and through our look at our contracts, our many contracts, we're looking at those anchor institution commitments. We're looking at the living wage commitments, where we're on net zero. I don't know if has anybody heard of the Chancery Lane project? Go away and Google it, okay? That's one thing I would advise. It was something I learned attending the Sustainable Procurement Pledge events last year. Chancery Lane project gives you, and we're all good commercial people, they give you free clauses to include in your contracts around sustainability and social value. So I would urge you all to take a look at that. We're looking at how we can incorporate those as well into our efforts. So finally, we all play our part, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but some of you may be thinking, well, how do I get started? Okay, just like it, just do it, just do something. Okay, we are a generation, we are beholden to the next generation to make a difference. And if you all wait for it to be perfect, it won't start. Okay, when we started the relationship with GiveWith, we signed the deal in March 2020. And then obviously the world went on its head. So we didn't launch it officially till about 6 months later. Make a difference, be it yourselves or as your organisations. And I know I read this book back last summer. It's a wonderful read. Even if you don't like rugby, okay, it doesn't matter. It's just a really, really great story and a great insight how you build success over a long term into an organisation. And it talks about, leaving the jersey, the famous All Black jersey. It pained me as a Welshman, but how you leave it in a better place than when you inherited it. And then talk about that story you've been through as you go there. Invest, pay forward, and make a difference. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, please, thank you.
You said that you put Coupa in a really short period of time.
Yes.
How long was the project to get your data clean and tidy before those 100 days?
Yes. That's an ongoing activity. Let's be frank. The data wasn't perfect when we started. It's something we're actively working on now and have been for a period of time. So I couldn't give you a definitive date, but it's something, if we waited for it to happen, I don't know how long that would have taken us. We just thought, okay, put it another way, it was somewhat simpler. We had nothing before that. We had a P2P system, but we had nothing in terms of a source. So we were a little bit easier, luckier than others may have faced in that. So we didn't have to face that challenge. We had to face, Westwood, we faced the challenge of, okay, we have a set of supplier data over here, and then how do we marry that? There's some more things from a more downstream perspective than upstream that we have to deal with. Okay?
Cheers.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, go for it.
About giving some advice around being curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious in the sense, how did you then take that advice and potentially work with your wider commercials to make them be curious about decisions they're making, perhaps from a supplier perspective?
Yeah.
To encourage suppliers to have that nature of their suppliers.
Yeah, I'm curious by nature, so perhaps nosy, mothers might say. It's been one of those things where it's been a constant reiteration of that since taking over. I inherited a function which hadn't had a lot of guidance or direction for a sustained period of time. Hadn't had a lot of learning and development. And it was interesting, they'd been waiting 3 years for an operating model, and we give it to them in 3 months. And so from that, it's that ability to say, I believe you, I support you, and which they hadn't had for a sustained period of time. So then you go, okay, well, I can go and explore this, or just unlock in a market intelligence provider to give them insights into a market should they've never been before. It's just really giving them, it's nothing profound or unique, it's just making sure that they feel they've got strong leadership with a clear direction of what is expected of a commercial, procurement, supply chain organisation, whatever you want to call it, for this decade and beyond. And they're getting it now. Some I think some it's taken slightly longer. With any transformation, you break it into 3 areas: those who are desperate, those who are mildly curious and think, okay, I'll go with this because it's better than what I had before, and you've got a proportion of people who weren't very happy with what was before, but the idea of change, my goodness me. So we've got that first 2 elements along the path, and those other ones now are coming along on an ever-increasing basis. So I think it's just a reiteration of your purpose, your sense of why you're here, and making them feel good. It's strange to believe that we were very fortunate. We won an award at the end of 2020 for the work we did on hand sanitizers. We turned London distilleries into creating hand sanitizer. We won an award. The buzz in the team was unbelievable. That recognition all of a sudden that the organisation that had previously been, oh, can you just sign the contract, is seen as a key enabler in keeping the force operational during a time of unprecedented crisis, is a game changer. So, That's a long answer to a simple question, sorry. Any other questions? No? Stunned to silence.
I'll give you an observation one. So we had James Carr at our sales kickoff at Coupa this week.
Okay.
So and he gave a great sort of rallying the troops type speech, but it was as a Welsh person myself, as a Welsh person, the rugby analogy wasn't wasted on me, but I think it was a great way to just look at it. And I think that whole thing of leaving something in the best place. So really strong ethics just to have in the back of your mind at all times.
Yeah. I think it's just so on point. You just can't you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just with there. So yes, please. Thank you.
So what initiatives did you use to upskill the team when you came in? It hadn't been sort of managed properly for
Yes.
time. So how did you sort of motivate the team and incentivise them?
So I suppose it was to give them a sense of, okay, this is where we're going. You know, it was. I revealed to them we would show you a new operating model on the 30th of March 2020. I will commit to doing that. And then on the 23rd of March 2020, I'm now putting the country into lockdown. And the consulting organisation we were working with at that time said, okay, we're stopping then? No. Because they were all their other customers saying we're going to pause until September. And I said, if we pause now, we lose all the momentum we've gained in that previous 100 days. So it was to give them that clear direction, as well as then start to turn on access and availability of learning and development materials and access to other mediums that they hadn't had before. So the government commercial college has a very, very well established range of materials that we could start to accredit people around contract management. You know, there was training available via the GLA. We started to give them and say, invest in yourselves. You know, look, take this time, and under the challenges faced by the second lockdown last year, we implemented a policy within commercial specifically. Last Friday of the month, L&D. Book it out completely. I want you to invest your time and effort, and that's quite revealing, because then when you've asked them to do certain training and they still haven't done it, and they say, well, I'm giving you 4 hours every, come on, it's a bit of give and take on this. So it was just to start to feel that they were able to apply for jobs they'd never been able to apply for before. They could see a career path, they were being trained and developed, and they could start to see that the organisation, which you could classically say is a back office function, is having a direct impact on frontline operations. So they could see a sense of, okay, I actively encourage my team to go out and go on a drive along. Go and spend an hour or a couple of hours in the back of a car and hear and see the challenges. I went and spent some time back in September up in a station in North London, and I was in the back of the car to drive around Tottenham, and one of the officers came and said, excuse me, sir, and it's always a sir. It's quite flattering, that aspect. It was, can I have a jet washer? It was, okay, I'll go away and see what we can do about it. It's just getting out and understanding the difference you could make to people risking their lives every day for that. To answer your question. Thank you. Any others? Thank you so much for making the choice to come here. I appreciate that. Any questions after today, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer them, and thank you again very much. Safe journey. Thank you.